Hey guys, great to be here. Happy to talk about what we have been working on Flow and also like what's coming up in the next couple of months as well. So first, a quick introduction about Celer. Celer is a blockchain interoperability platform that is very generalized. It can support asset bridging, of course, but also like generalized message function. It's generalized message passing between different blockchains, and also like build intelligence in this middle layer. So basically, we are able to merge all of the different blockchains states together, and also like merge all the liquidity as a unified liquidity. Of course, Celer first and foremost has the functionality to do asset bridging as the first, essentially first application of the generalized cross-chain platform. The cross-chain bridging side of things is growing really faster these days. We just passed like $6.1 billion transaction volume in the last 6 months, and on a daily basis we process about 50 to like $100 million volume basically. And right now we have processed we have been used by 133K different unique users. And the value logged in our system is about $730 million. So, on the Seabridge side, it's growing really quickly. What Seabridge enables is really connect all these different blockchains. We have 27 different blockchain support that allows assets to move freely between different blockchains. But Celer is a lot more than just asset bridges. So Celer actually have the capability to build interchain native applications, things like cross-chain swaps, where you can have just a one-click user experience to swap from X token on A chain to Y token on B chain, or you can have like a NFT bridging, of course, but also like very exciting things like NFT marketplaces that are multi-chain native. That is, if you list an NFT on one chain, for example, if you list an NFT on Flow, users on other chains can just like directly buy that NFT without even having a Flow-based wallet. And there are other things like multi-chain yield aggregator, where like you can have your yield aggregator access all the different strategies from one chain to all the other different chains and move funds freely. And you can have a multi-chain governance where your community can vote using your governance token that is bridged across multiple chains, and then the governance decision can be aggregated together and then propagated back to each and every individual chains. So there are a lot of different applications and protocols that are building on top of the very, very generalized interchain message framework. And everything in the Celer's in Celer is like highly composable. You basically can compose one interchain app with another interchain app. An example of that is that you can, for example, you can say, okay, I want to bridge $100 from Ethereum to Flow, and I want to use that $100 for something, right? So I want to use that $100 to purchase the NFT, and you are essentially composing the Seabridge's asset bridging functionality with a new kind of, let's say, NFT marketplace app, where you're using that bridged fund to actually act and execute certain kind of transactions on the destination chain. So so that's basically what we built for Flow blockchain. In the first step, we start with like the most important thing, which is asset bridge, which is also the first step, right? So like we support asset bridge in and out of Flow. So like if you have a Flow-based token that are issued inside of the Flow ecosystem, we can actually help you to bridge that token, from Flow to all the other different blockchain ecosystem. It makes things easy for you guys to kind of support. If you want to kind of add liquidity in some other DEXs in the space, if you want to add liquidity in some lending protocols, if you want to see if it is easier to make it easier for centralized exchange listings, for example, these things can be helpful if you have a way to bridge your token from like Flow to a ERC20 format. Another very, very important thing that we enable using this, asset bridge integration with Flow is that now a lot of different blockchains like Ethereum, Matic, Avalanche, and all these other different blockchains can actually start to bridge funds into Flow, right? So, for example, you can bridge wrapped ETH, Tether, DAI, wrapped BTC, all to Flow like with a very simple user interface. And by the way, this entire user interface is also like very composable. You can actually have this user interface built into your application without actually having the user to go out to the Cbridge website. So, from user perspective, if they have the way to kind of have their recipient address, and in this case, we're connected with Blockto, and, they can just say, oh, I want to kind of bridge this 0.05 USD wrapped ETH into Flow. They can just like do that very easily. And then after that, after this bridging is done, the user will see their 0.5 this transaction is done, and you can see what's the status of this transaction. And once the transaction is completed, the user will receive the bridged wrapped ETH in their wallet. What this means is that this actually opens a lot of use cases like DeFi applications on top of Flow. If you want to have some other blue chip tokens to pair with Flow in the Flow native DEXs. And we're collaborating with multiple of these DEX builders as well, like MetaPeer, like Increment Finance. They can actually have the liquidity pool build for things like Flow versus wrapped ETH, Flow versus USDP, Flow versus DAI, and all these different other kind of liquidity pools and lending protocols and yield aggregators can start to build and pop up on the Flow ecosystem with this Flow chip token, and also like help to boost the Flow's TVL in general. Of course, that also enables outside users, outside of Flow to actually interact and potentially purchase Flow based assets, right? So if someone from Ethereum community mostly holds ETH, can start to use their ETH to directly purchase Flow based NFTs like NBA legendary cards and all these kind of exciting and interesting NFT projects. So it can be kind of accessed for users that doesn't have the Flow token yet and doesn't have the FUSD token yet, to allow like all the different community to kind of onboard it to Flow. So it's really kind of a way to help the ecosystem project on Flow to expand into multiple chains, but also at the same time bring users and liquidity from other different blockchains into Flow. So that's the first step that we did with the Flow blockchain. Now, the second part, of course, is that what Flow is really good for is NFT, right? So however, there is no good way to bridge Flow-based NFT into a ERC 721 or ERC 1155 representation, and vice versa. So we're also enabling that functionality in the coming months. So that users and holders of NBA Top Shots can actually bridge their NFT out of Flow to access a liquidity and NFT marketplaces in all these other different ecosystems to kind of seek for maybe the best price to sell, or the most audiences to display their Flow-based NFT as well. And of course, all of this is built on top of the interchain message framework, and with all these supported users will be able to also build and integrate Flow into their developers will be able to integrate Flow into their interchain native dApps. So they can have the capability to allow things like cross-chain yield aggregator, cross-chain NFT bidding, cross-chain governance, and all these other exciting application use cases that I just mentioned. So that's just a kind of a quick introduction of us and what we have done in Flow ecosystem. Looking forward to kind of collaborate with a lot of different projects. If you're interested in using assets outside of Flow ecosystem, if you're interested in bridging your assets all of Flow ecosystem, we are the right team to talk to, and the entire bridge is fully non-custodial. There's no custodial component in it. It's a highly secure build based on a blockchain architecture itself. And of course, like I saw in the chat, there's a mention of bug bounty. We have like $2 million standing bug bounty there. The flow component is not included in this bug bounty yet, but it will soon be. We're still in the alpha bootstrap phase of flow, because like flow integration is really new to us there. So there are some limits in terms of rate limiting and everything to make sure that it's a smooth launch. And we're also like asking more security auditing firms to look at the code on the Cadence side. But like hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we can complete many of the rest of the auditing processes, and also like include flow-based smart contract in the $2 million bug bounty. So yeah, so that's just a quick introduction about us and what we have been building.
Thanks, Mo. I mean, awesome work. We have a couple questions for you. It's great that you already answered the bug bounty one. I know Blue Sun was curious about the bug bounty. So you mentioned that it's going to be more or less live in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Like we still have because Flow integration is relatively new, so we want to get as many eyes as possible from the security auditing firms on the Flow based implementation. So like so there are still a couple of audits that is pending. But like once we have all those out, we will be kind of including this into a more public bug bounty on the for the flow portion, basically.
Cool, awesome. So another question is by Phil. He loves the work that you're doing, and he's been following since the Flow Partner Spotlight. He'd love to see the Flow contracts that you're using to power, Seabridge and the general Flow side of things with Celer. Are they available? I mean, apart from on chain, but do you have a repository where they're easy to kind of find and browse through?
Yeah. So if you go to our GitHub, you will be able to find the token contract for Flow, and also like because and there's a documentation section in our Seabridge docs, and if you search for Flow contract, you will be able to see those contract addresses as well.
Cool. And then here's technically a criticism, but I think it should be the other way around. So here it says, you should be more involved with the Flow community, because throughout the presentation he mainly talks about Top Shots while Flow is bigger. That Flow is definitely bigger, but I also encourage everyone from the Flow community to reach out to Celer and make sure that you're integrating or using their services. I think Top Shot is just an easy example to reference, because it's pretty much top of mind. So I wouldn't see this as I don't think that Mo and his team are only thinking about Top Shot. They're thinking about the whole Flow community. It's just a matter of if you're interested in DeFi applications, if you want to use Seabridge or the multi-chain framework that they're building, then definitely kind of reach out to them, make yourself known across the community. I think you're supporting something like 23 chains, you said, so it's kind of hard to dive super deep into the community of each one. So it really should be on us to be proactive. And
and just to highlight some of our amazing launch partners who are kind of already integrating with us. For example, Metapeer, AMM DAX, Increment Finance, lending protocol, and also like DeFi Suite, Floaty, Mental Finance, My NFT, Cheese, Record Shop, and all these, different kind of ecosystem partners are partnering with us, and they're absolutely awesome. So like we definitely look forward to kind of work with more ecosystem partners in the Flow community as well.
Awesome. And that brings us to the next question, which is, do you mind explaining a little bit by why having a DEX like Metapeer or IncrementFi matters, or how it can be useful for users as well as projects?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Flow right now doesn't really have like a non-custodial, DeFi ecosystem yet. So, which is something that I think it can be extremely valuable addition for the entire community. right? So like if you for every blockchain right now there is a DeFi ecosystem, and this allows people to have a non-custodial way to kind of trade assets in the blockchain. It doesn't have to kind of rely on centralized exchanges to gain liquidity and launch project into the ecosystem, like using IDO platforms and stuff like that. So this is why that we think having the capability or enabling more liquidity for the entire Flow ecosystem, the Flow issue tokens can be super crucial. And this is also what we heard from many of the users as well. So that's why now we're enabling this kind of a bridging capability to support and integrate and partner with all these other DeFi ecosystem. So very exciting things it had. That is, you will start to see a very full-fledged flow-based like DeFi ecosystem that is enabled by the Celer bridge.
Cool. We have also a question. So we have three more questions. The first one, which is more related to Seabridge specifically, and the other two questions are a bit more general. I think people are curious to pick your brain about the general, DeFi and flow thing. But the first one is, how does Seabridge relate to other interchain messaging? For example, Polkadot's peer-to-peer or IBC.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Polkadot peer-to-peer and IBC are just for Polkadot and the IBC, like Cosmos ecosystems. So Celer is a much more generalized protocol that connects to all of these different chains. Not only just like we support Polkadot ecosystem as well, we support Cosmos ecosystem as well. But we also support EVM and other non-EVM supported blockchains. Another thing that I want to highlight, this might get down to a little bit more technical detail here, is that compared to all the other interoperability protocols, Celer is not just about passing information around different chains, right? So you have this big class of interoperability protocol where you're just having a message from chain A and pass that information from chain B, however you pass it. But like Celer is much more than that, because like in the beating heart of Celer, there is something called a state guardian network, which is in itself is actually a blockchain, a full-fledged blockchain. You can actually build logics on top of this blockchain, where the message from chain A can pass through this chain and execute logics on top of it. And based on like all the available information it has by like overlooking all the other different chains, and then kind of transform this message and pass it on to the destination chain or a different chain or multiple different chains. So this is a kind of functionality that doesn't really, isn't really available in all the other interoperability platform. And what this means is that you can have a much higher liquidity efficiency in the liquidity in building liquidity protocols, and also like support of cross-chain asset management use cases, cross-chain governance use cases, and many more, to have like just much more efficient like interaction between different chains.
Super cool. This is the start of a chainception, chain within the chain within the chain.
That's right.
So, well, while we're on the DeFi subject, so someone's curious to get your thoughts on, what are your views about DeFi on Flow?
It's gonna be amazing. Yeah, it's our view. So, DeFi on Flow is not there yet, and I think much of this is because of like the overall ecosystem on the DeFi side is new and doesn't have the bridged assets available. So we're definitely enabling that. So like you will start to see a full-fledged like lending protocol, AMM, DEX, yield aggregators, and all these different flavors to DeFi to build out a very, very complete DeFi ecosystem on Flow is what we are hoping to help the entire Flow community to build. And we think that can be super valuable.
Well, great to hear. And very much looking forward to the DeFi space becoming more and more rich with tools and features on the DeFi side. Do you use any oracles for Flow?
No.
Awesome. Okay. I kind of guess that it's all done, through the interchain messaging. Okay, cool. And last question, promise. What do you think are the biggest challenges that Flow faces today? Very general question.
The biggest challenge that Flow faces today, like I think, I wouldn't say it's a challenge, like because like what we have been seeing on the Flow community and also like Flow ecosystem is that it has a huge amount of users. It has like a very very large traction inside and outside of the crypto ecosystem. So like what we see is more like opportunity basically. Like what's left there to be done, what we can help, right? So like I think enabling DeFi ecosystem on Flow is something that is a very very good opportunity for Flow to grow and also for us to grow together. And also like things like NFT bridging to enable the already very very large audiences and community of Flow to kind of expose their assets on Flow to other blockchain ecosystems and gain more liquidity and gain more traction is the opportunity that we see. And I think this is opportunity generally applies to any blockchains, but like for Flow, I think like the good thing here is that the user problem is already solved. There are millions of users are actively engaging in the application in Flow. We just need to kind of build the tunnels, like build the bridges, build the communication highway between Flow and all the other different chains to kind of enable a very very efficient liquidity flow and a very very efficient like a user onboarding process from other ecosystem to Flow as well.
Cool. I totally agree. Opportunity is the keyword here, and great to to see how much Celer is contributing to building out those tunnels. Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Mo, for taking the time to answer all these questions.